In the competitive landscape of job hunting, the power of the interview follow up cannot be underestimated. It is the key to turning a promising interview into a solid offer. My next guest is going to talk about mastering the follow up, three expert tips to post interview success to ensure your dream job becomes a reality. Here on Early Career Unlocked. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me, Aaliyah. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited that you're back. You were a guest in season 1, and now you're here again. And this time, you're going to talk about a topic that I think a lot of students need to hear, and that is mastering the follow up, three expert tips for post interview success. So, before we get started on this piece of advice, remind the viewers again, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so my name is Jonathan Giddings. I live in the DFW area and I'm a senior enterprise account executive at Sophos. It's a cybersecurity company and a 2019 graduate from the Yee University of North Texas.
We used to work together at another company. You volunteered as one of my helpers when it comes to career fairs at UNT. And I remember you being there and everyone was calling out your name. You were a celebrity when we were on campus.
It's really cool to give back in any way, and I feel like I was so thankful and grateful for really all of the hands that helped me get where I am. So I feel like I owe it to them to make sure I do go back.
So I know the topic about following up after an interview is not really talked about much, especially for college students, high school students, when you're interviewing. Before we jump into the advice portion of things, how are you knowledgeable when it comes to post follow up?
Yeah, so I've worked for some of the largest cybersecurity companies since graduating college. And with that, it's been extremely competitive. That's the best way to put it.
Yes.
Extremely competitive situations. And with that, to set yourself apart is by following up, taking that extra step that others might not. And I really think that that's got me where I am today.
What three piece of advice do you have when it comes to mastering that follow up post interview?
Yeah, so first off, I'd say be professional. It's one about the timing when you do it. So maybe 5 minutes after an interview isn't correct, but a month later isn't correct either. But alongside that, let's make sure to check our grammar and spelling as well. Keep in mind, this is going to be a reflection of not only the work that you've done in the interviewing process, but everything else that's led up to this moment.
There is Copy AI, there is ChatGPT, there is Grammarly, all these AI powered type platforms to help you craft that message. And what would be number 2?
Be clear and concise. So understand the wording that you use and how it might be absorbed by the reader when they're reading it. And also along that, make sure to have a call to action. An email is great, but if you have something that can give you a defined next step and perhaps what we're going to try to do after this, it gets you a response as well as it more so sets the groundwork for you.
Very nice. Do you have a story you want to tell about your experience?
Well, really on my day-to-day job, I'm a senior enterprise account executive and working in sales. A lot of it is about following up and not only doing it, but in the certain way that you do it, making sure that the wording that you're using makes sense to the people. So, talking to a security professional rather than a business professional, the way that I might interact with them is going to be a little bit different. So, understand your audience. And alongside that, make sure that you have something planned for those next steps because it can help you really crush everything else along the way by setting that plan.
And you being in sales, you know how important it is to sort of customize the message a little bit that feels familiar to the conversation that you have, or else it's going to sound very robotic or it's going to sound very generic.
Right. And I think that really leads to the third follow-up point. Address concerns and just information that was discussed during that interview process. So if there are any hurdles or if there are perhaps any way that you feel like you might have fell short, don't hesitate to ask. One, it'll set you apart because I promise you most students aren't going to do that. And two, it also gives you insight into exactly where they are in the process and their thought process of you thus far. So it can be some great feedback.
Do you have any examples of how someone can maybe customize that?
Of course. So first, like I mentioned earlier, understand who you're talking to and what that might mean for them and why it's going to be important. Alongside that, take some of the things that you've already stated in your interview and point those back to things that can validate you as a subject matter expert. May that be a project or a different portfolio that you have that you could show them, or if it's simply by a reference letter. Including this information in that follow up can really assist you with not only showing, like, hey, this person's willing to go above and beyond, but also they're well qualified this by giving that additional information.
I love that piece of advice because When students interview, sometimes they're trying to set themselves apart using the answers of experience, or I did this, or I traveled here and I learned this. But having that follow up after kind of pulls it all together. Here's what I was talking about, or here's a link that I was referring to, or here's my GitHub profile that has all my projects that I listed in the interview, sort of help illustrate or bring some reference to the conversation.
Of course. So think of an interview as you're drawing a picture. That follow up can give you a chance to add a little bit of color and really set yourself apart in it by giving the whole picture. So that's why I think that it's extremely important.
To summarize, when it comes to mastering the follow up, three expert tips for post interview success from Jonathan today. One, be professional. Two, be clear and concise. And three, address concerns. Well, thank you, Jonathan. I love those pieces of advice. Do you have anything else you would like to offer to our viewers today?
I'd love to read, and one of the books that I've recently read is Free Your Energy by Sylvester McNutt. It walks through how to better yourself, and I think that that's a large part of really any success that you're trying to find in life. You've got to first find it within yourself.
Okay, and if I find the link, I'm going to put it in the description below so that folks can find it. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for being a guest again on Early Career Unlocked.
Thank you for having me, Aaliyah. Have a great one.
And to our viewers, for more career advice from experts like Jonathan, subscribe to Early Career Unlocked. I mean, I really love your advice. Like, students need to hear this.